There's 4 of us. 2 days, nothing to eat. 1 sandwich, please.
No money, no food.
He's diabetic. He's shaking right now.
Not my problem.
You'd let a man drop on your floor?
Call 911.
4 bikers, stranded at a gas station off Route 9, a charity ride for homeless kids, and they couldn't even feed themselves. Duke Calloway, 3 tours in Afghanistan, built a foundation from nothing, couldn't buy a glass of water. Liam Foster sat outside, gripping his school lunch. 19, black. The only black kid on this side of town. The only meal his mother woke at 5 to pack. He walked inside and split it 4 ways. "Here," the kid said, "take mine." But Liam didn't know what that lunchbox was about to start. Cedar Hollow wasn't the kind of town that made the news. Population 4,000 and shrinking. 1 traffic light. A Family Dollar, a post office, and a diner called Rosie's that still had a payphone bolted to the wall by the restroom. The Foster house sat at the dead end of Maple Street, a 2-bedroom bungalow with white paint that had gone gray in patches, and a porch rail that leaned like it was tired of standing. The mailbox at the curb read Foster in stick-on letters, but the second F had peeled off 2 winters ago, and nobody had replaced it. Inside, the kitchen smelled like coffee and dish soap. Ellen Foster moved through it the way she moved through everything, quickly, quietly, with the efficiency of someone who had learned not to waste a single minute. She was 44, but looked older. Night shifts at St. Francis Hospital had carved lines around her eyes that no amount of sleep could fix, mostly because sleep was something she rarely got. Her scrubs were already laid out on the bed for tonight. Powder blue, size small. The same pair she'd worn 3 times this week because the dryer had broken in March and she'd been hand-wringing everything since. At the kitchen counter, she packed a lunchbox. Rice from last night. A piece of chicken thigh she'd trimmed from her own dinner plate. Boiled greens. 1 apple, the last one in the bag, slightly bruised on the left side, but she turned it bruised down so it looked better. She sealed the lid and set it by the door. This was the routine. Every morning, 5 a.m. Before Liam's alarm went off at 5:10, Liam Foster was 19, black, the only black family on Maple Street, and one of a handful in Cedar Hollow. Freshman at Cedar County Community College, studying mechanical engineering because his father had been good with his hands, and Liam figured the talent had to go somewhere. He was lean, not athletic lean, but the kind of lean that comes from skipping meals and not talking about it. Close-cropped hair, a quiet face, the kind of kid you wouldn't notice in a crowded room unless you were paying attention. And most people in Cedar Hollow had stopped paying attention to the Fosters a long time ago. His father, Greg Foster, had been a construction worker, framing crew. Good at it, too. The foreman used to say Greg could hang a door plumb in the dark. 3 years ago, a scaffold brace snapped on a commercial site in Henderson. Greg fell 22 feet onto a concrete slab. He died before the ambulance crossed the river. There was a settlement, $14,000. It sounded like a lot until the funeral cost $6,000, and the rest went to back rent and a water heater that had quit the same month, as if the house itself knew something had broken. After that, Ellen picked up nights at St. Francis. 12-hour shifts, 3 to 4 times a week, on her feet from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., checking vitals, changing wound dressings, cleaning up after patients who sometimes swore at her and sometimes held her hand and cried. Liam got a job at Quick Mart, the convenience store on Route 9, same road as the gas station half a mile east. He worked evenings, 5 to 11, stocking shelves and running the register for $9.25 an hour. After closing, he'd sweep the parking lot for an extra 15 minutes off the clock because the manager, a man named Dale, once hinted that employees who went the extra mile got kept on the schedule. On Saturdays, Liam knocked on doors offering to mow lawns for $10 a yard. Most people said yes out of pity. A few said no and closed the door before he finished asking. He kept a folded envelope in his dresser drawer with cash he skimmed from his own tips. 10s and 5s he slipped into his mother's purse when she wasn't looking. Ellen never mentioned the money. Liam never mentioned that he saw the foreclosure notice she'd hidden under the phone book on the kitchen counter. $12,400. 3 months overdue. A red stamp at the top that said, "Final warning." They were careful with each other that way. Gentle. Like two people carrying the same heavy thing through a narrow door, each pretending the weight wasn't killing them. Every morning, Liam picked up the lunchbox by the door. Every morning, he said the same thing. "Thanks, Mom." And every morning, Ellen smiled and said, "There's plenty." There wasn't. The thing about being poor and black in a small white town is that everyone knows and nobody says it to your face. They say it behind you, in the cereal aisle at Family Dollar, in the church parking lot after Sunday service, in the low voices that stop when you walk into Rosie's diner. Liam heard it once through the open window of Mrs. Patterson's kitchen while he was mowing her lawn. "Ellen's behind 3 months on the house." 3 months? Lord! The boy works every night at that gas station store. You see him walking home at 11? 11 o'clock, on foot, in the dark. Somebody ought to do something. Nobody did. At school, Liam sat in the back row. Not because he was a bad student. His grades were solid, mostly B's, an A in applied mechanics. But because the back row was where you sat when your jeans had a patch on the left knee and your backpack zipper had been broken since September. The back row was where you sat when your classmates went to Chili's after Thursday labs and you told them you'd already eaten, even though the last thing in your stomach was a granola bar from the Quick Mart break room that Dale let employees take if they were past the sell-by date. He borrowed his textbooks from the library, not the campus bookstore, the public library, where Mrs. Gaines kept a shelf of donated college texts behind the reference desk. Most of them were 2 editions old. Liam didn't mind. Calculus hadn't changed much. His laptop was borrowed too. A scratched Chromebook from the college's loaner program, due back every Friday and picked up again every Monday. He did his homework in the campus library between classes, because the Foster house didn't have internet. Ellen had canceled it 8 months ago. One of the first things to go after the cable and before the landline. The hardest part wasn't the hunger. Liam could handle hunger. He'd learned the tricks: drink water before class, chew gum during the afternoon slump, eat the lunchbox slowly, one small bite at a time, to make it feel like more than it was. On weeks when Ellen worked extra shifts and forgot to grocery shop, he'd eat ramen from the Quick Mart, the dented packages Dale couldn't sell, 20 cents each. The hardest part was the pretending. Pretending he wasn't tired when he sat down in his 8 a.m. thermodynamics lecture after closing Quick Mart at 11 and walking 40 minutes home in the dark. Pretending he didn't see the foreclosure notice when Ellen slid it under the phone book. Pretending he didn't hear the neighbors whisper. Pretending his shoes weren't held together with superglue on the left sole where the rubber had split along the ball of his foot. Pretending, most of all, that he wasn't angry, because he was. Not at his mother. Never at Ellen. She was doing everything a person could do and then some. He was angry at the scaffold brace that snapped, angry at the contractor who got fined $11,000 for a safety violation that killed his father. $11,000. Like Greg Foster's life was worth less than a used truck. Angry at the settlement lawyer who took 30%. Angry at the water heater, the dryer, the roof, the porch rail, the mailbox letter, the whole crumbling architecture of a life that kept demanding money they didn't have. But Liam didn't talk about anger. He talked about engineering. If you can understand how something breaks, he told his lab partner once, you can figure out how to keep it standing. His lab partner thought he was talking about bridge loads. He wasn't. The one thing Liam never skipped was the lunchbox. Every morning, he picked it up from the kitchen counter, still warm, and carried it to school in his backpack like it was something fragile. Because it was. Not the food. The food was simple, cheap, ordinary. But the act of it. His mother, exhausted, standing in that kitchen at 5 a.m. packing rice and chicken and greens into a plastic container for a son she wouldn't see again until tomorrow, because their shifts ran opposite, like 2 trains on the same track that never crossed. That lunchbox was the only conversation they had most days. It said, "I'm still here. I still care. We're still a family." And every morning, Liam carried that conversation to school, and ate it alone on a bench outside the engineering building, where nobody could see how slowly he chewed. It was a Friday afternoon in late September, and the heat hadn't broken yet. Liam pedaled his bike down Route 9 with his backpack bouncing against his spine and the empty lunchbox rattling inside. He had a shift at Quick Mart in 2 hours, enough time to get home, shower, change, and walk back. The bike was a 10-speed from a yard sale, $15, chain that slipped in third gear, handlebars wrapped in electrical tape where the rubber grips had rotted off. He stopped at the gas station to put air in his front tire. The pump was free, one of the few things in Cedar Hollow that still was. That's when he saw them. 4 motorcycles parked in a crooked row by the side of the building. 2 Harleys, an Indian Scout, and a Honda Goldwing with saddlebags hanging open and empty. The chrome was dusty. The tires were road-worn. These bikes had been going somewhere for a long time. The riders were sitting on the concrete curb in the thin strip of shade cast by the awning. Duke Calloway was the biggest. 55, broad through the shoulders with a silver beard that covered half his chest and sun-cracked skin weathered by decades on the road. His leather vest carried patches from 3 military tours, Afghanistan twice, Iraq once. The patch over his heart read, "Wheels for Hope," a charity he'd founded 6 years ago to raise money for homeless youth. Built from nothing. No grants, no sponsors, no office. Just Duke making calls from the kitchen table of his 2-bedroom apartment in Atlanta, organizing rides, collecting donations, driving supplies to shelters himself when nobody else would. Last year, Wheels for Hope had delivered $11,000 to shelters in 9 states. Duke had paid for the gas out of his own pension. Ray Bennett sat next to him, 48, former shop teacher from Virginia who'd lost his job during budget cuts and found the road when he lost everything else. Sunburn from collar to wrists, eyes half closed, too tired to talk. Sal Whitmore, 42, shaved head, compass rose tattoo on his left forearm. Co-owned a small construction company in North Carolina, Brooks and Whitmore, residential framing. Volunteered 2 weeks every year for Duke's runs. He sat cross-legged staring at his dead phone. Tommy Brooks was the youngest, 30. He sat apart from the others, back against a trash can, knees pulled to his chest. His skin was pale and slick with sweat. His hands were shaking, a fine, constant tremor he tried to hide by tucking them under his arms. Tommy was type 1 diabetic. His insulin kit was in the saddlebag that had bounced off Ray's bike on a pothole somewhere on Interstate 40. Same bag that held their wallets, cash, cards, and 2 days' worth of food. They'd been riding from Atlanta to a shelter called Second Chance House in Cedar Falls. 200 kids a year, the kind of place that ran out of blankets every December. Day 2 of 3. 14 hours since their last meal. 6 hours since Tommy's last glucose check. Duke had been watching Tommy's hands for an hour, counting the tremors. 10 per minute had become 15. 15 had become constant. He knew the math. Another hour, maybe 2, and it would go from bad to something worse. He'd already tried the gas station clerk. Twice. "I need food for my guys. We lost everything on the highway. I'll send payment tonight. Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, whatever you want." The clerk, a thin man in a red polo with a name tag that read Phil, had looked at Duke's vest, his patches, his leather, and said, "No." Store policy. Duke tried once more, kept his voice level, explained the diabetes, explained the charity. Phil picked up the phone and said he was calling the police. So Duke sat on the curb and waited. The support van was 6 hours behind. Tommy's tremors were widening. Ray had stopped speaking an hour ago. Sal's phone was dead. Liam stood at the air pump pretending to check his tire pressure. He'd heard the whole thing through the open door. Duke's voice, steady, controlled, the voice of a man trained to keep calm when everything was falling apart. Phil's voice, flat, bored, done. Liam looked at the 4 men on the curb. He looked at his backpack. The lunchbox was empty, but in the front pocket, folded into a square and sealed with a strip of masking tape, was a $20 bill. Ellen had put it there on the first day of the semester. She'd written a note on the tape in blue ballpoint. Only if you really need it. 6 weeks. He'd carried it for 6 weeks. Through midterms. Through a week when the kitchen had nothing but ramen and canned corn. Through the night his left shoe split open and he glued it shut with superglue from the Quick Mart shelf. Through every moment that felt like a really need-it moment but wasn't quite. Because Liam had learned a long time ago to tell the difference between hard and impossible, and he was saving that 20 for impossible. He looked at Tommy Brooks, shaking against the trash can on a concrete curb in 90-degree heat. This was impossible. Liam unzipped the front pocket, peeled the tape, unfolded the bill, read his mother's handwriting one more time. Then he walked inside. Liam walked past Phil without looking at him, past the candy rack, past the motor oil, past the rotating hot dog grill that had been empty since noon. Straight to the cold case at the back of the store. He pulled out 4 bottles of water, $2 each, $8. Then he went to the snack shelf. 4 packs of peanut butter crackers, $1.50 each, $6. $14, almost a full day at Quick Mart. He set them on the counter. Phil looked at the bottles, then the crackers, then Liam. That's $14.18 with tax. Liam put the 20 on the counter. Ellen's 20. The tape still stuck to one corner, the blue ink of her handwriting facing up. He could read it from where he stood. Only if you really need it. Phil made change, $5.82. He dropped the coins on the counter instead of placing them in Liam's hand, the way he always did when Liam came in, the way he never did when other customers paid. Liam pocketed the change, picked up the bottles and crackers, and walked outside. Duke was still sitting on the curb. He watched Liam come around the corner with both arms full and didn't say anything at first. Just looked at him. The way you look at something you weren't expecting. Not with surprise exactly, but with the kind of quiet recognition that comes when the world does something you'd almost stopped believing it could do. Liam set the water and crackers on the concrete in front of the 4 men. "Here," he said. "It's not much." Nobody moved for a second. Then Tommy reached for a bottle of water with both shaking hands. He unscrewed the cap and drank half of it in one long pull. His eyes closed. A sound came out of him that wasn't quite a word, just relief, raw and involuntary, like a man who'd been holding his breath finally letting go. Ray opened a cracker pack and ate it in 3 bites. No talking, no pleasantries. Just a man putting food in his body because his body had been asking for hours and he'd been telling it to wait. Sal broke his crackers in half, ate one half, wrapped the other in the cellophane and put it in his vest pocket. Old habit. The habit of someone who'd learned that you don't eat everything at once because you don't know when the next meal is coming. Duke ate last. He opened the crackers slowly, chewing each one like he was thinking about something. His eyes stayed on Liam the whole time. "What's your name?" Duke asked. "Liam. Liam Foster." "Duke Calloway." He extended his hand. Liam shook it. Duke's palm was rough and warm, twice the size of Liam's, calloused across the knuckles from decades of engine work and tent poles and handshakes with men who trusted him with their lives. "You go to school around here, Liam Foster?" "Cedar County Community College, mechanical engineering." "Engineering." Duke nodded slowly. "Smart kid. Just like learning how things work." Duke looked at Liam's bike, the electrical tape, the slipping chain, the backpack with the broken zipper and the safety pin holding the strap. He looked at Liam's shoes, one sole visibly glued. He looked at the gas station door where Phil was watching them through the glass with his arms crossed. "That 20, Duke said quietly. "That was your money?" "My mom's." "Emergency money?" "Yeah." Duke set down his crackers. "Liam, I've ridden 42,000 miles for charity in 6 years. Met a lot of people. A lot of good people, a lot of people who say they care. But I have never—" He stopped, pressed his lips together, looked away for a second, then back. "I've never seen someone give away the thing they can't afford to lose." Liam didn't know what to say to that, so he said the thing his mother always said. "There's plenty." Duke looked at him for a long time. "No, there isn't," he said, "and that's exactly why it matters." Tommy had stopped shaking. His color was coming back. He looked up at Liam from the curb and said, "Thank you, man. Seriously, thank you. You're welcome. Liam picked up his bike, swung his leg over the seat, and pedaled toward Maple Street. $5.82 in his pocket, an empty lunchbox in his backpack, 11 minutes late to get ready for his shift. He didn't look back. Duke pulled out his phone, 3% battery. He opened the Notes app and typed 2 words before the screen went dark. Maple Street. The support van arrived at 11 that night. By then, Tommy's blood sugar had stabilized. Ray had fallen asleep sitting up. Sal had called his wife from the van driver's phone and told her he loved her for no particular reason. Duke hadn't said much since Liam left. He'd been sitting on that curb for 5 hours, thinking about a $20 bill with masking tape on it and a kid who rode away on a bike held together with electrical tape and didn't look back. The van driver, a retired trucker named Hank, handed out sandwiches and water and asked if everybody was okay. "No," Duke said. "I need to find somebody." The next morning, Duke drove back to Cedar Hollow alone. Not on the Harley. He borrowed Hank's pickup, because what he was planning required more than 2 wheels. He found the gas station first, went inside. Phil was behind the register again. Same red polo, same dead expression. "I'm looking for a kid named Liam Foster. Lives on Maple Street." Phil shrugged. "Yeah, I know him. Comes in to use the air pump. Works at the Quick Mart down the road." "What do you know about his family?" "Mom's a nurse. Dad died a few years back. They're behind on the house." Phil said it the way people say things they don't care about. Casually, like reciting a weather forecast for a town they don't live in. Duke left without buying anything. He found Maple Street. Dead end. The Foster house was the last one on the left. He parked across the street and sat in the truck for a minute, just looking. The house was worse than he'd imagined. Not abandoned worse, lived in worse, which was somehow harder to see. The porch rail was crooked but recently scrubbed. The windows had curtains, thin, sun-faded, but ironed. The yard was overgrown, but someone had trimmed a neat path from the sidewalk to the front steps. A push mower with a broken blade sat by the side of the house, next to a garden hose coiled on a nail. These were people who were trying. That was the thing that hit Duke hardest. They weren't giving up. They were losing, slowly, a little more each month, but they weren't giving up. A yellow notice was taped to the inside of the front door. Duke couldn't read it from the truck, but he'd seen enough of them in his life to know what it was. Foreclosure. Final stage. He knocked on Mrs. Patterson's door, the neighbor. She came out drying her hands on a dish towel and looked at Duke the way small-town women look at bikers on their porch. Cautious, but polite. "I'm looking for the Foster family. Can you tell me about them?" "Are you a bill collector?" "No, ma'am. I'm a friend." Mrs. Patterson studied him for a long moment, then leaned against the doorframe and talked for 20 minutes. She told him about Greg, the scaffold, the settlement that barely covered the funeral. She told him about Ellen, the night shifts, the double shifts, the morning she found Ellen asleep in her car in the driveway because she was too tired to walk to the front door. She told him about Liam. "That boy mows every lawn on this street for $10. Never complains, never asks for help. Walks to work and back every night. 40 minutes each way in the dark. I offered to drive him once. He said he didn't want to be a bother." She paused. "He slips money into his mama's purse when she's not looking. I saw him do it through the kitchen window one morning. 10s and 5s from his own pay." Duke sat in the truck afterward for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and made a video call to Ray, Sal, and Tommy. The screen split 4 ways. Ray was on his couch in Virginia. Sal was at his kitchen table. Tommy was in bed, IV taped to his arm from a glucose drip at the urgent care in Cedar Falls. "That kid from the gas station," Duke said. "His name is Liam Foster. 19 years old. Works 2 jobs. His father's dead. His mother works nights. They're about to lose their house." Nobody spoke. "He gave us his mother's emergency money," Duke said. "Her last 20. And then he told me there's plenty." Tommy wiped his face with the back of his hand. "What do we do?" Ray asked. Duke leaned forward. "We ride." Duke posted the story that night. He wrote it on the Brotherhood network, a private forum with 18,000 members across 40 states. Bikers, veterans, mechanics, truckers, retired cops. The kind of men and women who didn't share things unless they meant it. The post was simple, no exaggeration, no begging, just what happened. 4 of us stranded at a gas station in North Carolina. 2 days without food. Tommy going into glucose shock. Gas station clerk wouldn't sell us a cracker on credit. A 19-year-old kid, skinny, broke, bike held together with tape, walked up and spent his mother's last emergency 20 on water and peanut butter crackers for 4 strangers. Then he got on his bike and rode away. Didn't ask for a name, didn't ask for anything. His mother is a night shift nurse. His father died 3 years ago. They're about to lose their house. His name is Liam Foster. He lives in Cedar Hollow, North Carolina, Maple Street. He hit post at 10:47 p.m. By midnight, it had 200 comments. By morning, it had 4,000. By Monday, it had crossed over from the forum to Facebook, then to Instagram, then to Reddit's motorcycle communities. Screenshots of Duke's post showed up in group chats from Montana to Miami. Someone made a TikTok, just a voiceover reading Duke's words over footage of an empty gas station at dusk. It got 3 million views in 2 days. The comments were a wall of the same emotion, said 1,000 different ways. We ride for our own. This kid is one of us. My boy is 19. I can't imagine him going hungry so his mom can eat. I'm in Texas. How far is Cedar Hollow? I'll ride. Tell me where to send money. A retired Marine in San Antonio named Cliff Walker set up a GoFundMe page titled Ride for Liam. He wrote one line of description. A kid gave 4 strangers his last meal. Let's make sure he never has to again. It raised $8,000 in the first 12 hours. $20,000 by Wednesday. $45,000 by Friday. Sal Whitmore called his construction partner and asked for 2 weeks off. I need to fix a house, he said. His partner didn't ask questions. Ray Bennett drove to the hardware store in Virginia and loaded his truck with lumber, roofing nails, and 5 gallons of exterior paint. Color, white, the way it was supposed to be. Tommy Brooks, still recovering, posted a video from his bed. No script, just him, sitting up against the pillows, IV still in his arm, talking to the camera. I'm alive because a 19-year-old kid I'd never met spent his mom's last $20 on peanut butter crackers. He didn't know I was diabetic. He didn't know my sugar was crashing. He just saw someone shaking and decided to help. That's it. That's the whole thing. The video got 900,000 views. Riders from 14 states started calling Duke. Not emailing, calling, voice to voice, old school, the way Brotherhood worked. When do we ride? Saturday, Duke said. 1 week from today, Cedar Hollow, Maple Street. Be there by 7 a.m. How many you expecting? Duke paused. He'd been hoping for 50, maybe 100 if the word spread. I don't know, he said. Enough. He had no idea. Ellen Foster, meanwhile, slept through all of it. Night shifts. She came home at 7 each morning, ate a piece of toast, standing up, and went to bed. Liam never mentioned the gas station. He went to class, worked his shifts, ate his lunchbox on the bench, and didn't check the internet because he didn't have it. The storm was coming, and neither of them knew. Saturday morning, 6:48 a.m. Ellen had just pulled into the driveway. 12-hour shift. Her hands still smelled like latex and sanitizer. She sat in the car for a minute, not to rest, but because the car was the only place where nobody needed anything from her. She heard it before she opened the door. A low hum. Distant. She thought it was construction. Then the coffee in the cup holder started to vibrate. Ellen stepped out and stood in the driveway, still in her scrubs, and watched the end of Maple Street fill with motorcycles. They came around the corner in rows of 4, headlights on, chrome catching the first light. They kept coming, row after row. The street filled, then the sidewalks, then the grass shoulders, then the empty lot by the Patterson house. 1,500 motorcycles. Riders from 14 states. Patches from clubs Ellen had never heard of. Iron Brotherhood, Desert Wolves, Granite Ridge MC, Steel Saints. Old men on vintage Harleys, young women on sport bikes. A man in his 70s on a 1978 shovelhead. Every one of them here for the same reason. Liam came out the front door in his boxers and a t-shirt, barefoot, holding a glass of water he'd been drinking when the sound woke him. He stopped on the porch. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Duke Calloway dismounted first. Same vest, same silver beard, but his face was different now, lighter, like a man about to set down something heavy. He walked up the cracked path, up the creaking steps, and stood in front of Liam. "Morning, Liam." "Duke?" "Told you my name was Duke Calloway." He smiled. "Didn't tell you what I do when somebody feeds my crew." Behind him, riders were climbing off their bikes. Hundreds of them. Unstrapping coolers of food, bags of groceries, gift cards, and envelopes. Sal's pickup was loaded with lumber, paint, roofing shingles, a new front door still in plastic. "What is this?" Liam said. "This is what happens when a kid shares his lunch." Ellen came around the side of the house at a run, still in scrubs, hair loose. She stopped at the yard's edge and stared. "Liam, what is going on?" Duke stepped forward. "Ma'am, my name is Duke Calloway. A week ago, your son found me and my crew stranded at a gas station. We hadn't eaten in 2 days. He bought us food with money I'm pretty sure you gave him." Ellen looked at Liam. Liam looked at his feet. "He used the 20, she said quietly. "Yes, ma'am, and I'm here to pay it back." Duke turned and gestured at the street behind him. 1,500 people who had driven through the night from 14 states because a teenager had opened a lunchbox. "We all are." Tommy Brooks walked up carrying a white envelope. Steady now, no shaking, color in his face. He held it out to Ellen with both hands, the way you hold something sacred. "From the GoFundMe," Tommy said. $52,000. Ellen took the envelope, opened it, looked at the check, looked at Liam, looked at Duke, looked at the 1,500 strangers standing in her yard, on her street, on the sidewalks of a town that had been whispering about her family for 3 years. She sat down on the porch steps and cried. Not the quiet kind. The kind that comes from a place so deep you didn't know it was there until something cracks it open. 3 years of night shifts. 3 years of foreclosure notices. 3 years of packing a lunchbox at 5 a.m. and saying, "There's plenty," when there wasn't. All of it breaking loose at once, on a Saturday morning, in front of people she'd never met. Liam sat down next to her, put his arm around her shoulders, said nothing, just held on. Duke stood on the walkway and waited. Behind him, 1,500 riders stood in the morning sun and waited too. Nobody rushed her, nobody spoke. They let her feel it. Then, one by one, they went to work. Riders who were carpenters pulled out tool belts. Riders who were electricians checked the wiring. Riders who were just strong started carrying lumber. Sal Whitmore climbed onto the roof with a crowbar and started pulling up rotten shingles. Ray Bennett pried the front door off its hinges and replaced it with the new one. A woman from the Steel Saints chapter in Georgia, a retired painter named Donna Wells, opened the first can of white paint and started on the porch rail. By noon, the house didn't look like the same house. Mrs. Patterson stood in her front yard holding a pitcher of lemonade, tears running down her cheeks, pouring glasses for strangers who called her ma'am and wiped their boots before stepping on her grass. The neighbors, every last one of them, the same ones who'd been whispering for 3 years, came out with water, sandwiches, folding chairs, extension cords. Nobody whispered anymore. Channel 7 showed up at 2 in the afternoon. A reporter named Angela Cross walked through the crowd with her microphone and pressed blazer, looking like she'd stepped onto another planet. Bikers moved aside for her, leather vests and tool belts parting like a sea of chrome. Duke gave the interview in front of the house, paint still wet behind him. This kid had nothing, and he gave us everything he had. Not because he expected something back, he did it because someone was hurting and he could help. That's the whole story. Angela asked to talk to Liam. He was on the roof with Sal, holding shingles in place, soaked in sweat, roofing tar on his hands. "He's busy," Duke said. The clip aired at 6. By midnight, someone had posted Duke's quote on TikTok with the caption, "This man is not crying, he is remembering what kindness looks like." 12 million views in 4 days. The story jumped. Local to regional. Regional to national. A morning show producer called Duke and asked if Liam would fly to New York for a segment. Duke asked. Liam said no. He had a thermodynamics exam on Tuesday. But the ripple kept spreading. Cedar County Community College reached out first. The Dean of Engineering, Dr. Patricia Hollis, pulled Liam's file. GPA, 3.4. Attendance, perfect. Financial aid, maxed out and still not enough. One call to the scholarship committee. By Wednesday, a letter sat in Liam's campus mailbox. Full scholarship, 4 years. Tuition, books, monthly stipend. Liam read it 3 times standing in the hallway outside the engineering lab. Folded it into his back pocket and went to class. He told Ellen that night at the kitchen table. She held the letter with both hands like it was made of glass and read it twice before she trusted herself to speak. St. Francis Hospital moved next. The head of nursing, Dr. Alan Jeffries, had watched the news segment in the break room while Ellen worked 2 floors above him unaware. He opened her personnel file. 12 years of service, 3 commendations, 0 sick days in 18 months. Then he checked billing records. $8,200 in outstanding medical debt, copays, deductibles, an ER visit from the year Greg died that she was still paying off at $40 a month. He wrote it off, all of it. Then he approved her transfer to day shift, the request she'd submitted 9 months ago that had been sitting in a pile on his desk, buried under paperwork he kept meaning to get to. Ellen found out on a Tuesday morning. She sat in Dr. Jeffries' office and didn't cry this time. She just said, "Thank you. Can I start Monday?" She was already doing the math. Day shifts meant being home when Liam was home, dinner together, packing his lunchbox without setting an alarm for 5 a.m. The mortgage was the last piece. $52,000 from the GoFundMe. Overdue balance, $12,400. Paid in full. The remaining $39,600 went into a savings account at the credit union on Main Street. The first savings account Ellen had held since Greg died. The yellow notice came off the front door. Nobody put up a new one. 1 month later, Duke called. "You free tonight? I've got a shift at..." Liam stopped. He didn't work at Quick Mart anymore. The scholarship stipend covered what he needed. He'd given notice 2 weeks ago. Dale shook his hand and said, "Good luck, kid." It was the nicest thing Dale had ever said to anyone. "Yeah, I'm free. Bring your mom. I'm sending Ray to pick you up, 6 o'clock. Duke's garage was a converted warehouse on the south side of Atlanta, 3 hours from Cedar Hollow. Sheet metal walls, concrete floor stained with motor oil, workbenches covered with wrenches and coffee cans of bolts sorted by size. Tonight, someone had cleared the floor, pushed the bikes to the walls, set up folding chairs, and hung string lights from the rafters, warm and gold against the metal ceiling. 200 riders filled the room. Sal stood by the door with a grin he couldn't wipe off. Ray sat in the front row in a clean flannel, first time Liam had seen him wear one. Tommy near the back, healthy and steady, holding a beer and talking to a woman in a Granite Ridge MC vest who kept punching his shoulder and laughing. Ellen sat in the second row in a blue dress she'd bought that afternoon, the first clothing she'd purchased for herself in 2 years. She kept smoothing the fabric over her knees, glancing at the bikers and their patches and their tattoos, not quite sure what to make of a room full of strangers who seemed to know her son better than she did. Duke stood at the front. No podium, no microphone, just Duke with something draped over his arm. The room went quiet. Most of you know why we're here, but I'm going to tell the story one more time because some stories need to be said out loud. He told it from the beginning. The ride from Atlanta, the lost saddlebag, Phil, Tommy shaking on the curb, and the kid with electrical tape on his handlebars who peeled open a $20 bill his mother had taped into his backpack and spent it on 4 strangers he'd never met. "I've been riding for 30 years, Duke said. 40,000 miles on charity runs. I've met generous people, people who write big checks, people who give the shirt off their back." He paused. "But I have never met anyone who gave away the thing they couldn't afford to lose, and then looked me in the eye and said, There's plenty. He unfolded what was on his arm. A leather vest, black, new. On the back, the Wheels for Hope patch. On the front, above the left pocket, a name stitched in gold thread. Liam Lunchbox Foster. The room erupted. Whistles, stomping boots, 200 people clapping in a metal building where every sound bounced off the walls like thunder. Someone in the back row put 2 fingers in his mouth and whistled so loud it cut through everything. Duke held the vest out. This makes you one of us. Not because you ride. You don't even have a motorcycle. Laughter rippled through the room. But because brotherhood isn't about the bike. It's about what you carry in here. He tapped his chest. Liam took the vest. His hands were shaking. Not Tommy's kind, but the kind that happens when something is too big to hold and you're trying anyway. He put it on. Slightly too large in the shoulders. He didn't care. My dad used to tell me something, Liam said. His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. He said, the smallest thing you do might be the biggest thing in someone else's day. I didn't really understand that when I was a kid. He looked at Duke, at Tommy, at Ray and Sal and the 200 faces watching him. I just shared my lunch. Ellen was crying again. Quiet this time. The good kind. She reached over and squeezed the hand of the woman sitting next to her, a stranger in a Steel Saints vest, and the woman squeezed back without hesitation, as if they'd known each other for years. Duke pulled a folded paper from his vest pocket. One more thing. The community set up a scholarship fund named after your father. He handed it over. The Greg Foster Memorial Fund. For children of construction workers. First recipient starts next fall. Liam read his father's name in print. Greg Foster. The man who could hang a door plumb in the dark. He folded the paper carefully and put it in the vest pocket right over his heart. Outside, someone started an engine. Then another. Then another. 200 motorcycles firing up in sequence, a rolling wave of thunder that shook the string lights and rattled the coffee cans on the workbenches. They weren't going anywhere. It was just how brotherhood said welcome. Liam is 20 now, sophomore year, Dean's List, still studying mechanical engineering. The backpack has a working zipper. The shoes are new. The bike got real grips, though he kept the electrical tape on the left handlebar because Duke told him, don't forget where you started. He hasn't. Every morning, Ellen packs a lunchbox. She doesn't set an alarm anymore. Day shifts start at 7. She's up by 5:30 out of habit. Rice, chicken, greens. Sometimes a note folded under the lid. Have a good day. Or just a small heart in blue ballpoint. Liam eats on the same bench outside the engineering building. He doesn't eat slowly anymore. On Saturdays, he rides to the gas station on Route 9. Phil doesn't work there anymore. Liam parks by the air pump and leaves a brown paper bag on the bench by the door. Sandwich, water, crackers. No note, no name. He's done it every Saturday for a year. He doesn't check if anyone takes them. The Foster house looks different now. White paint, straight porch rail, new roof. The mailbox reads Foster in full, all 6 letters. There's a garden in the side yard. Tomatoes, basil, sunflowers taller than the fence. On the mantel, next to Greg's photo, a framed picture of Liam in a leather vest, still too big in the shoulders, surrounded by 200 bikers, grinning like he'd just been handed the world. Maybe he had. A $3 lunchbox, 4 strangers, 1,500 motorcycles, and a kid who proved that the smallest thing you do might be the biggest thing in someone else's life. Have you ever given away something you couldn't afford to lose? Tell me in the comments. Share this with someone who needs it. And if you haven't already, subscribe.
Maya just sat on the hallway floor and listened. Everybody who went into the house heard silence. Maya heard a language droning slit under doors, a guitar played at midnight, yellow paper cranes carrying a dead mother's words. Not 1 second of that silence was empty. It was grief speaking the only way it knew how, and that's what breaks me about this story. We keep demanding people heal on our terms, speak when we're ready, open up on our schedule. But the people who actually say first, they don't hand you a script. They sit beside you in the dark and learn whatever language your pain is speaking, even if it's silence, especially if it's silence. So let me leave you with this. When someone you love goes quiet, are you trying to make them talk, or are you learning how to hear what they're already saying? And what if the silence in your own life isn't emptiness, but a voice you haven't learned to translate yet? Tell me in the comments. What would you have done in Direct Souls? Subscribe if this one hit different. I'll see you in the next one.